What if everything you believed about happiness is actually keeping you trapped? In this powerful summary of the Emperor of Gladness, you'll uncover a deeply emotional journey that explores pain, meaning, and the true cost of chasing a perfect life. If you've ever felt lost, overwhelmed, or stuck in your own thoughts, this story is speaking directly to you. Stay with me, because by the end of this audiobook, you'll gain a new perspective on life, emotional strength, and what real gladness actually means. In the Emperor of Gladness, the chapter A Quiet Life opens not with dramatic events, but with stillness, the kind of stillness most people overlook. The protagonist lives a life that appears ordinary on the surface, yet beneath that calm routine lies a subtle dissatisfaction, a feeling that something important is missing. Days pass in repetition, waking up, going through responsibilities, interacting with people in predictable ways, and returning home with a quiet sense of emptiness. It's the kind of life many people live without questioning. Stable, safe, but strangely unfulfilling. The story gently forces us to confront a powerful idea. Just because life is peaceful does not mean it is meaningful. Think about someone working a 9-to-5 job, earning enough, having no major problems, yet constantly feeling disconnected. They scroll through social media at night, seeing others living exciting lives, and wonder, is this all there is? Or imagine a student who follows the expected path. Study, score, repeat, but never pauses to ask what truly excites them. The book captures this silent struggle beautifully. The protagonist doesn't initially rebel or break down. Instead, they slowly begin to notice the gap between what they are living and what they truly feel. That awareness is the first spark of change. What makes this part engaging is how relatable it is. There is no villain, no chaos, just a quiet realization that comfort can sometimes become a cage. The chapter suggests that many people avoid questioning their lives because silence feels safer than uncertainty. But deep down, that unasked question keeps growing louder. The protagonist begins to observe small details, the monotony of routine conversations, the lack of genuine excitement, the absence of purpose, and starts to feel an inner tension building. This is where the real journey begins, not with action, but with awareness. You can apply this idea in your own life by simply pausing and observing your daily routine. Ask yourself, am I just passing time, or am I actually living? For example, if you spend hours consuming content but rarely creating anything meaningful, what does that say about your direction? If your days feel predictable and uninspiring, is it because you chose comfort over growth? Even small changes, like learning a new skill, having deeper conversations, or setting a personal goal, can break that invisible cycle. The key lesson here is that transformation doesn't start with a big decision. It starts with honest observation. This chapter also challenges you to reflect deeply. When was the last time you felt genuinely excited about your life? Are you living based on your own desires, or simply following what's expected of you? If nothing changed in your life for the next 5 years, would you be happy with where you end up? These questions may feel uncomfortable, but they are necessary, because the truth is, a quiet life can either be peaceful or empty, and the difference depends on awareness and intention. Main points. A calm and stable life does not always mean a meaningful or fulfilling life. Many people live on autopilot, avoiding deeper questions about purpose and happiness. Awareness is a first step toward change. Noticing dissatisfaction is not a weakness, but a signal. Comfort can become a trap if it prevents growth and self-discovery. Start observing your daily routine and identify areas where you feel disconnected. Take small actions like learning, creating, or connecting more deeply with others. Reflect regularly. Are you truly living or just existing? In The Emperor of Gladness, the chapter The Weight of Emotions dives deep into an invisible burden that almost everyone carries but rarely acknowledges. The protagonist begins to realize that it's not external problems that are exhausting them, but the accumulation of unprocessed emotions, stress, regret, fear, and quiet sadness that have been ignored for far too long. These emotions don't disappear. Instead, they settle within, shaping thoughts, reactions, and even identity. What makes this part so powerful is how it reveals that emotional weight doesn't always come from major tragedies. Sometimes, it's built from small, repeated experiences, being misunderstood, suppressing feelings to avoid conflict, or constantly pretending to be fine in front of others. Imagine someone who smiles all day at work, agrees with everyone, avoids confrontation, and appears calm, but internally feels drained every night. Or a student who never expresses their anxiety about expectations, bottling it up until even small challenges feel overwhelming. The book illustrates how these suppressed emotions slowly pile up, like carrying a backpack that gets heavier with every passing day. At first, the weight feels manageable, but over time, it begins to affect how you think, how you act, and how you see yourself. The protagonist starts noticing this shift. Simple decisions feel harder, interactions feel more tiring, and even moments of rest don't bring real relief. What makes this chapter especially engaging is the realization that many people don't even know they are carrying this weight. It becomes their normal. The protagonist begins questioning their emotional patterns. Why do certain situations trigger such strong reactions? Why does silence feel uncomfortable? Why is it so difficult to express what they truly feel? This self-awareness becomes both uncomfortable and liberating. It's like finally recognizing that the exhaustion you feel isn't because life is too hard, but because you've been carrying too much without letting go. You can apply this lesson in your own life by starting to notice your emotional patterns instead of ignoring them. For example, the next time you feel irritated or anxious, pause and ask yourself, what am I really feeling beneath this? Is it fear, insecurity, or something unresolved from past? A practical step could be journaling your thought at the end of the day, not to solve everything immediately, but to acknowledge what you feel. Another example is learning to express small truths, like saying, I need a break, or I don't feel comfortable with this, instead of constantly suppressing your voice. Over time, these small acts reduce the emotional load you carry. This chapter also encourages deeper reflection. How often do you ignore your feelings just to maintain peace? Are you carrying emotions that no longer serve you? If your emotional state could speak honestly, what would it say right now? The truth is, emotions are not meant to be hidden or avoided. They are signals meant to guide you. The more you suppress them, the heavier they become. But the moment you start acknowledging them, even without fully understanding them, you begin to lighten that weight. Main points. Emotional exhaustion often comes from unprocessed and suppressed feelings, not just external problems. Small, repeated emotional experiences can build a heavy internal burden over time. Many people normalize emotional weight without realizing its impact on their life. Self-awareness is a first step toward emotional freedom. Practice identifying your true emotions instead of ignoring or masking them. Use simple habits like journaling or honest communication to release emotional pressure. Reflect regularly. What am I feeling right now, and why am I avoiding it? In The Emperor of Gladness, the chapter Searching for Meaning marks a turning point where protagonists can no longer ignore the quiet emptiness inside and begins actively questioning the purpose of their life. What makes this phase so compelling is that nothing dramatic changes externally. There is no sudden crisis or life-altering event. But internally, everything starts to shift. The protagonist begins to realize that routine, comfort, and even success cannot replace a deeper sense of meaning. This search is not straightforward or glamorous. It is confusing, uncomfortable, and filled with doubt. The character starts asking questions that most people avoid. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Does any of this truly matter? Is this the life I chose, or the life I settled into? This part of the story reflects a very real experience. Think of someone who achieves what they once dreamed of, a stable job, financial security, social approval, but still feels an unexplained emptiness. Or consider a student who works hard for years to get into a good college, only to realize afterward that they don't feel fulfilled. The book captures this paradox. Achieving goals does not automatically create meaning. The protagonist experiments with small changes, trying new activities, meeting different people, exposing themselves to new ideas, but quickly realizes that meaning cannot be found externally alone. It is not hidden in a specific job, place, or achievement. It is something that must be created internally through awareness, intention, and alignment with one's true values. An interesting aspect of this chapter is how it portrays a fear that comes with searching for meaning. The protagonist hesitates because questioning everything can feel like losing control. Imagine you've been following a certain path for years, and suddenly you start doubting it. That uncertainty can be terrifying. For example, someone might stay in a career they dislike simply because it feels safer than starting over. Or a person might avoid exploring their passions because they fear failure or judgment. The story shows that the search for meaning often requires stepping into discomfort, letting go of false certainty, and being willing to face difficult truths about oneself. You can apply these insights in your own life by beginning your own search, even in small ways. Start by identifying what truly matters to you beyond external validation. For instance, do you value creativity, freedom, connection, or growth? Then ask yourself whether your current lifestyle reflects those values. A practical exercise could be setting aside time each week to explore something meaningful to you, whether it's learning a skill, helping others, or simply reflecting without distractions. Another approach is to observe moments when you feel most alive or engaged. What are you doing in those moments? Who are you with? These clues can guide you toward a more meaningful direction. This chapter also invites deep reflection. Are you chasing goals that genuinely matter to you, or ones that were imposed by society or expectations? If everything external was taken away, status, money, approval, what would still give your life meaning? Are you avoiding this search because it feels uncomfortable or uncertain? The truth the book reveals is simple yet powerful. Meaning is not something you find once and keep forever. It is something you continuously create through your choices, actions, and awareness. Main points. Meaning cannot be achieved through routine, comfort, or external success alone. The search for meaning often begins with discomfort and deep questioning. External achievements do not guarantee internal fulfillment. Fear and uncertainty are natural parts of questioning your life path. Identify your core values and align your actions with them. Explore new experiences and notice what makes you feel alive and engaged. Reflect regularly. Am I living a life that truly matters to me, or just following expectations? In The Emperor of Gladness, the chapter The First Turning Point represents the moment where quiet awareness transforms into undeniable action. Up until now, the protagonist has been observing, questioning, and feeling the growing discomfort of a life that no longer feels aligned. But this chapter marks a shift. The realization becomes too strong to ignore, and something inside finally breaks a cycle of passivity. It is not a dramatic, cinematic moment, but rather a deeply personal decision, one that may look small from the outside, yet carries immense emotional weight. The protagonist begins to understand that knowing the truth about one's life is not enough. At some point, you must act on it, even if the path ahead is unclear. This turning point often comes from a seemingly ordinary situation. It could be a conversation that lingers longer than expected, a moment of unexpected honesty, or even a quiet breakdown where everything that was suppressed finally surfaces. Imagine someone sitting alone late at night, replaying their life choices, suddenly realizing they cannot continue the same way anymore. Or think of a person who has been tolerating a job they dislike for years, and one day, after a small but triggering incident, decides to take a step toward change. Maybe not quitting immediately, but starting to prepare for something different. The book captures this subtle yet powerful shift. Change rarely begins with confidence. It begins with discomfort reaching its limit. What makes this chapter especially engaging is the fear that accompanies this decision. The protagonist is not suddenly fearless or certain. In fact, doubt becomes stronger than ever. Questions like "what if I fail?" or "what if this makes things worse?" begin to surface. This reflects real life, where the first step toward change is often the hardest because it challenges everything familiar. For example, someone might want to pursue a passion but hesitate because of financial insecurity. Or a person might want to express their true feelings in a relationship but fear rejection. The story shows that the turning point is not about having all the answers. It is about choosing to move forward despite uncertainty. You can apply this lesson in your own life by recognizing your own turning points. These are moments when you feel a strong inner push to change something, even if it's uncomfortable. Instead of ignoring that feeling, try to act on it in a small, practical way. For instance, if you feel stuck in your current path, start by taking one step, learning a new skill, having an honest conversation, or setting a boundary you've been avoiding. These actions may seem minor, but they signal a shift from passive thinking to active change. The key is not to wait for the perfect moment, because it rarely comes. Growth begins when you decide that staying the same is no longer an option. This chapter also encourages deep self-reflection. What is the one thing in your life you know needs to change, but you keep avoiding? What fear is holding you back from taking that first step? If you continue living the same way for the next year, where will it lead you? And most importantly, what is one small action you can take today that aligns with the life you truly want? The turning point in the story reminds us that transformation is not about sudden perfection. It is about the courage to begin. Main points. A turning point begins when awareness turns into action. Change often starts with small, emotionally significant decisions. Fear and doubt are natural when stepping into the unknown. Waiting for certainty can delay necessary growth. Identify moments where you feel a strong need for change. Take small, practical steps instead of waiting for big opportunities. Reflect regularly. What am I avoiding? And what is one step I can take today? In The Emperor of Gladness, the chapter The Struggle Within pulls us into the most intense battlefield of all, the mind. After the first turning point, the protagonist expects clarity and relief, but instead encounters a deeper conflict. Old habits, fears, and beliefs don't disappear just because a decision has been made. They fight back. This internal struggle becomes exhausting as two versions of the self begin to clash. One that seeks growth and change, and another that craves comfort, safety, and familiarity. The protagonist starts to feel stuck between moving forward and falling back, realizing that change is not a straight path but a constant negotiation with oneself. This struggle is something almost everyone experiences but rarely talks about openly. Imagine someone who decides to wake up early and work on their goals, but every morning their mind whispers excuses. Just 5 more minutes. You can start tomorrow. It's not that important. Or think of a person trying to improve their mental health, but negative thoughts keep resurfacing, telling them they are not good enough. The book beautifully captures this tension, the realization that the biggest obstacle is not the outside world, but the voice inside that resists change. The protagonist begins to notice how this voice justifies comfort and magnifies fear, making even small steps feel overwhelming. What makes this chapter deeply engaging is how honest it is about the difficulty of transformation. The protagonist doesn't suddenly become disciplined or confident. There are moments of progress followed by setbacks, moments of clarity followed by confusion. For example, they might take a step toward change one day, speaking honestly, trying something new, or breaking a routine, only to feel doubt and regret the next day. This back and forth creates frustration, but it also reveals an important truth. Struggle is not a sign of failure. It is proof that something is changing. A powerful takeaway from this chapter is the importance of awareness and self-compassion during this internal conflict. Instead of fighting the negative voice aggressively, the protagonist starts to observe it. They begin to ask, why do I feel this resistance, and what am I afraid of losing? This shift changes everything. For example, if you feel resistance when trying to improve your life, it might not be laziness. It could be fear of failure, fear of judgment, or even fear of success. Understanding this allows you to respond more consciously instead of reacting automatically. You can apply this in your own life by recognizing your internal struggles without judging yourself. The next time you feel stuck or conflicted, pause and identify both sides of your thinking. What is the part of you that wants to grow saying? And what is the part of you that wants to stay comfortable saying? For instance, if you want to start a new project but keep delaying it, write down the reasons you're avoiding it. This simple act can bring clarity. Another practical step is to focus on consistency rather than perfection. Even if you take small steps forward while feeling uncertain, you are still progressing. This chapter also invites you to reflect deeply. What inner voice is holding you back the most right now? Is it fear, doubt, or comfort? Are you mistaking temporary discomfort for a sign that you should stop? What would happen if you chose to act despite that inner resistance? The truth is, the struggle within never fully disappears, but learning how to navigate it is what leads to real growth. The protagonist's journey shows that strength is not about eliminating conflict, but about continuing forward in spite of it. Main points. The greatest struggle during change is internal, not external. Point 2, conflicting forces exist within, one seeking growth and one seeking comfort. Resistance is natural and often rooted in fear, not laziness. Progress is not linear. Setbacks are part of transformation. Observe your thoughts instead of blindly reacting to them. Identify the real reason behind your resistance. Focus on small, consistent actions rather than perfection. Reflect regularly. What is my inner voice telling me? And is it helping or holding me back? In The Emperor of Gladness, the chapter Loneliness and Reflection slows everything down and places the protagonist in a space many people try to avoid, being alone with their own thoughts. After the internal struggle intensifies, the noise of daily life begins to fade, and what remains is a deep sense of loneliness. But this loneliness is not just about being physically alone. It is the emotional distance between who the protagonist truly is and the life they have been living. At first, this feeling is uncomfortable, even painful. Without distractions, every suppressed thought and emotion begins to surface. Memories, regrets, unanswered questions, they all come forward, demanding attention. This part of the story feels incredibly real because it reflects a common modern experience. Imagine someone who is constantly surrounded by people or digital noise, scrolling through social media, watching videos, chatting endlessly, but the moment they are alone, they feel an emptiness they cannot explain. Or think of a person who avoids silence by keeping themselves busy all the time, only to realize that the busyness is a way to escape deeper thoughts. The book highlights a powerful truth. Loneliness is often not about lacking company, but about lacking connection with oneself. As the protagonist sits with this loneliness, something begins to shift. What once felt like a burden slowly turns into an opportunity for reflection. Instead of running away, they begin to observe their thoughts more carefully. Why do certain memories hurt more than others? Why do certain patterns keep repeating in their life? This reflective state becomes a turning point in understanding. For example, someone might realize that their constant need for validation comes from a fear of being ignored, or that their hesitation to take risks comes from past failures they never fully processed. These realizations are not easy, but they are necessary for growth. What makes this chapter engaging is how it redefines loneliness. The protagonist starts to see that being alone does not have to mean being lost. In fact, it can be the only time when true clarity emerges. Consider a simple real-life example. A person who takes a walk without their phone, without music, just observing their thoughts. At first, it feels strange and uncomfortable. But gradually, ideas start forming, emotions become clearer, and a sense of direction begins to appear. This is a power reflection that the book emphasizes. You can apply this lesson in your own life by intentionally creating moments of solitude. This doesn't mean isolating yourself completely, but giving yourself time without distractions. For instance, spend a few minutes each day sitting quietly and asking yourself honest questions. You can also write down your thought without filtering them, allowing your mind to express what it has been holding back. Another practical step is to notice when you feel the urge to escape boredom or silence. This is often a sign that something deeper needs your attention. This chapter also invites you to reflect deeply. When was the last time you truly sat with your own thoughts without distraction? Are you avoiding loneliness because it feels uncomfortable, or because it reveals something you're not ready to face? What patterns in your life keep repeating, and what might they be trying to teach you? If you could understand yourself more clearly, what would change in your decisions and actions? The story shows that loneliness, when embraced, becomes a powerful tool for self-discovery rather than a state to fear. Main points. Loneliness is not just physical isolation, but a lack of connection with oneself. Avoiding silence often prevents deeper understanding and growth. Reflection allows hidden thoughts, emotions, and patterns to surface. Discomfort in solitude is natural but can lead to clarity. Create intentional moments of quiet time without distractions. Use journaling or mindful thinking to explore your inner world. Reflect regularly. What am I avoiding by staying constantly distracted? And what can I learn from? Facing it? In The Emperor of Gladness, the chapter The Past Resurfaces plunges the protagonist into a confrontation with memories and experiences they had long tried to suppress. As the journey of self-discovery deepens, it becomes clear that personal growth cannot happen without acknowledging the past. Events, mistakes, regrets, and unresolved emotions that were buried under routines and distractions now rise to the surface, demanding attention. These resurfacing memories are not just passive recollections. They stir strong emotions, guilt, anger, sorrow, or even nostalgia, and force the protagonist to reckon with who they were and how those experiences shaped the person they have become. This chapter resonates because it mirrors a universal human experience. Imagine someone who has avoided thinking about a difficult childhood, a failed relationship, or a missed opportunity for years. At first, recalling these events can feel painful or even frightening, but the process is necessary for understanding oneself. Or consider a professional who has carried the memory of a major career setback, feeling unworthy or anxious each time they try something new. The book shows that avoiding the past does not erase its influence. It quietly guides behaviors, fears, and decisions, often without conscious awareness. Confronting these memories becomes a first step in reclaiming control over one's life and actions. What makes this chapter compelling is the honesty it requires. The protagonist must face uncomfortable truths. mistakes that cannot be undone, opportunities that cannot be recovered, and actions that may have hurt others. For example, someone may realize they have spent years holding grudges, only to discover that these resentments have kept them emotionally stagnant. Or they may uncover that their fear of failure is deeply rooted in a past rejection, explaining why they avoid taking risks even when the present situation is entirely different. The narrative demonstrates that the past, when properly examined, becomes a source of insight rather than a source of shame. You can apply this lesson in your own life by creating a safe space to reflect on your past honestly. Journaling about difficult experiences, talking openly with a trusted friend or mentor, or even meditating on key life events can reveal patterns that were previously hidden. For instance, if you notice repeated mistakes in relationships or work, ask yourself, what past experiences might be influencing these behaviors? Another practical step is to forgive yourself for past errors, not to erase them, but to free yourself from their grip. Accepting your history as part of your journey allows you to make choices in the present with clarity and intention. This chapter also encourages deep reflection. What aspect of your past have you avoided confronting, and how are they affecting your present life? Are there unresolved emotions that keep resurfacing in subtle ways? If you could face your past without judgment, what lessons would you uncover? The protagonist's experience shows that growth is not linear. It requires courage to face what we have tried to forget. And in doing so, we gain the freedom to shape a future that is authentic and intentional. Main points. The past shapes behavior, fears, and decisions, even when ignored. Resurfacing memories are opportunities for insight, not punishment. Avoiding the past prolongs emotional stagnation. Honest reflection on past experiences reveals patterns and lessons. Practical application. Journal, meditate, or talk openly about past events. Practice self-forgiveness to release the grip of past mistakes. Reflect regularly. Which parts of my past am I avoiding? And what can I learn from them to live more intentionally today? In The Emperor of Gladness, the chapter Breaking Points takes the reader to one of the most intense stages of the protagonist's journey, the moment when internal pressure becomes almost unbearable. After navigating self-reflection, confronting the past, and wrestling with internal struggles, the protagonist reaches points where patience, resilience, and composure are pushed to their limits. These breaking points are not dramatic explosions in the external world. They are subtle, quiet crises of the mind and heart, moments when a weight of unresolved emotions, fears, and self-doubts converges into an almost physical pressure. The narrative reveals that these moments, though uncomfortable, are essential triggers of profound transformation, forcing the protagonist to confront what they have long avoided. This chapter resonates deeply because breaking points are universal, even if we experience them in different ways. Imagine a professional who has been juggling multiple responsibilities, pushing themselves to meet deadlines, and suppressing personal needs, only to have one small failure feel like the end of the world. Or think of a student overwhelmed by expectations, internal doubts, and the fear of disappointing others, suddenly realizing they can't keep pretending everything is under control. The protagonist's breaking points are similar. They expose vulnerabilities, challenge self-perception, and demand honest acknowledgement of what truly matters. What the story highlights is that breaking points are not signs of weakness. They are signals that change is necessary and inevitable. What makes this chapter especially gripping is the way it illustrates resilience in real time. The protagonist experiences intense emotional and mental strain, yet these moments also spark insights. For example, a person may realize that constant overworking is not about ambition, but about fear of inadequacy. Or they may discover that suppressed emotions, once acknowledged, lose their power to dominate daily life. The narrative teaches that breaking points can be reframed as opportunities, pressure points where growth becomes possible if met with awareness and courage. You can apply this lesson in your own life by learning to recognize and respond constructively to your breaking points. Instead of avoiding discomfort, take a moment to pause and ask, what is this moment trying to teach me? Which underlying emotions or patterns have I been ignoring? For instance, if you find yourself snapping under pressure, step back and identify the triggers. Is it a fear of failure, perfectionism, or unresolved past experiences? Practical applications include mindfulness exercises, journaling your thoughts during high-stress moments, or discussing your feelings with someone you trust. Each step, no matter how small, transforms a breaking point from a moment of despair into a pivot for growth. This chapter also invites deep self-reflection. How often have you ignored internal warning signs until they exploded? Are your breaking points teaching you something important about your limits, your values, or your fears? If you could approach them with awareness and curiosity instead of avoidance, how might your life change? The story demonstrates that the path to self-discovery is rarely smooth, but embracing these intense moments allows for genuine transformation and renewed clarity about one's purpose and priorities. Main points. Breaking points are natural signals that internal pressure has reached a limit. They reveal unresolved emotions, fears, and self-doubts that need attention. Experiencing a breaking point is not weakness, but an opportunity for growth. Awareness and reflection during high-stress moments can transform pressure into insight. Practical steps: pause, identify triggers, journal, practice mindfulness, and communicate feelings. Reflect regularly. What are my breaking points teaching me about my patterns, fears, and values? Use each challenging moment as a pivot towards self-awareness and intentional action. In The Emperor of Gladness, the chapter Facing Reality is a pivotal moment where the protagonist comes face to face with truths that can no longer be ignored. After navigating internal struggles, breaking points, and resurfacing past experiences, they arrive at a moment of clarity. Life cannot be lived fully without honestly acknowledging the reality of their circumstances, choices, and emotions. This confrontation is not easy. Reality, as the book illustrates, is often uncomfortable, unflattering, and at times even painful. The protagonist must reconcile the life they've been living with a life they truly desire, understanding that denial and avoidance have only prolonged suffering and stagnation. This chapter is both sobering and empowering, showing that true growth comes from honesty with oneself. The experiences described in this chapter are universally relatable. Think of a person who has been ignoring financial troubles, convincing themselves that everything will work out eventually, only to face a bank notice or debt collection. Or consider someone in a relationship or career that no longer serves them, who continues to pretend everything is fine while secretly feeling frustrated and unfulfilled. The protagonist's journey mirrors these situations. Avoidance may offer temporary comfort, but it cannot sustain long-term peace or fulfillment. Facing reality is about acknowledging both the positive and negative truths, from small daily habits to life-altering decisions, and accepting responsibility for them. What makes this chapter compelling is a blend of courage and humility required. The protagonist does not magically solve their problems in this moment. Instead, they gain clarity that allows them to make conscious, informed choices. For instance, they might realize that procrastination and excuses have cost them opportunities, or that self-deception has prevented meaningful connections. The book emphasizes that facing reality is less about judgment and more about understanding, recognizing the patterns and consequences of one's actions, and taking responsibility for shaping the next steps. Real-life examples include someone confronting unhealthy work habits and deciding to restructure their schedule, or a person acknowledging emotional dependency and taking steps toward independence. You can apply the lessons of this chapter in your own life by conducting honest self-audits. Start by asking yourself, which parts of my life am I ignoring or sugarcoating? Which habits, fears, or decisions are holding me back? For example, if you feel constantly stressed at work, instead of blaming circumstances alone, identify specific behaviors or choices that contribute to the pressure. Another actionable step is to practice radical honesty with yourself daily. Write down your feelings, review your actions, and note areas where denial has hindered growth. This will gradually build clarity, enabling you to respond thoughtfully rather than react out of fear or habit. This chapter also invites reflective questions. What truths about my life am I avoiding because they are uncomfortable? How would acknowledging them change the way I act today? If I continue to avoid reality, what long-term consequences might I face? Conversely, what opportunities might I unlock if I face these truths honestly? The story makes it clear that while facing reality can be challenging and emotionally taxing, it is also liberating. It provides the foundation for intentional decisions, self-empowerment, and meaningful progress toward a life aligned with one's values. Main points. Facing reality is essential for growth and cannot be avoided indefinitely. Avoidance offers temporary comfort but prolongs suffering and stagnation. Honest acknowledgement of both strengths and weaknesses enables informed decisions. Responsibility, not judgment, is a key to embracing reality. Practical steps. Conduct self-audits, journal feelings and actions, identify patterns of avoidance, reflect regularly. What am I ignoring in my life? And how would acknowledging it change my actions? Facing Reality is challenging but liberating, opening the path to meaningful, intentional progress. In The Emperor of Gladness, the chapter Emotional Collapse plunges a protagonist into one of the most intense and vulnerable stages of their journey. After confronting reality, facing internal struggles, and navigating breaking points, the accumulated weight of suppressed emotions, unprocessed experiences, and unresolved fears finally overwhelms them. This collapse is not a sudden outburst, but a deep, consuming moment where control feels impossible and the inner world seems chaotic. Anger, sorrow, regret, and fear intertwine, creating a storm that exposes just how much emotional tension had been quietly building over time. It is both terrifying and necessary. The story shows that emotional collapse, while painful, often becomes a catalyst of profound insight and transformation. This chapter resonates because it reflects a reality everyone experiences at some point, though often in different forms. Imagine someone who has been relentlessly pushing themselves at work, suppressing personal frustrations, and ignoring signs of burnout. Eventually, one small incident, a harsh critique, a missed deadline, or even a minor misunderstanding, triggers a flood of emotions, leaving them feeling drained, vulnerable, and unable to cope. Or consider a person who has avoided confronting grief or disappointment for years, only to have old wounds resurface unexpectedly, forcing tears, sleepless nights, or anxiety. The protagonist's collapse mirrors these real-life experiences, showing that emotional overwhelm is not a sign of weakness, but a natural response to sustained internal pressure. What makes this chapter compelling is the way it emphasizes the opportunity hidden within the collapse. The protagonist learns that emotional breakdowns, as uncomfortable as they are, serve as a powerful signal. Something within requires attention, healing, and change. For example, the protagonist may recognize that relationships built on avoidance or unspoken resentment contribute to emotional stress, or that long-held beliefs about themselves are unrealistic and damaging. Similarly, in real life, emotional collapse often pushes people to confront patterns they've ignored for years, prompting essential changes such as setting boundaries, seeking therapy, or pursuing healthier routines. You can apply this lesson in your own life by viewing emotional overwhelm as a guide rather than a threat. When you feel yourself reaching a breaking point, pause and ask, what am I truly feeling, and why? What experiences or choices have contributed to this intensity? Practical applications include journaling to untangle complex emotions, practicing mindfulness to stay present rather than overwhelmed, and seeking support from friends, mentors, or professionals. Additionally, developing habits like regular self-reflection, breathing exercises, or even brief periods of solitude can prevent emotional tension from building to the point of collapse. This chapter also encourages reflection. What emotions have I been suppressing, and how are they affecting my decisions and relationships? Are there unresolved experiences I need to confront to prevent further overwhelm? How would my life improve if I allowed myself to fully feel, process, and learn from these emotions? Emotional collapse reminds us that vulnerability is not weakness. It is an invitation to deep understanding, self-compassion, and growth. By embracing the lessons within emotional collapse, the protagonist, and we as readers, can emerge stronger, wiser, and more in tune with our authentic selves. Main points. Emotional collapse is a natural result of prolonged internal pressure and suppressed emotions. That IT is not a sign of weakness, but an opportunity for insight and transformation. Suppressed feelings and unresolved experiences contribute to emotional overwhelm. Reflection and acknowledgement of emotions are crucial steps toward healing. Practical steps: journal feelings, practice mindfulness, seek support, and create space for emotional processing. Reflect regularly. What emotions am I avoiding, and how are they impacting my life? Vulnerability and emotional collapse can lead to self-awareness, resilience, and meaningful personal growth. In The Emperor of Gladness, the chapter Lessons in Suffering explores one of the most profound aspects of the protagonist's journey, the recognition that suffering is not merely an obstacle, but a teacher. After navigating emotional collapse and confronting harsh realities, the protagonist begins to see that pain, loss, and hardship carry hidden insights that can transform understanding, behavior, and character. Suffering is presented not as something to be avoided at all costs, but as an inevitable and even valuable part of life that provides opportunities for growth, resilience, and deeper self-awareness. The chapter emphasizes that the way we respond to suffering defines whether it crushes us or catalyzes our development. This chapter resonates because it mirrors a truth that many people resist acknowledging. Suffering is universal. Consider someone who has lost a job, experienced a difficult breakup, or faced a serious illness. Initially, the experience feels unbearable, overwhelming, and unjust. Yet, over time, reflection reveals lessons embedded in the experience, perhaps discovering inner strengths, re-evaluating priorities, or building empathy for others who face similar challenges. The protagonist's journey mirrors these realities. Every setback, disappointment, or painful confrontation with the self becomes an opportunity to learn, adapt, and grow stronger. For example, an entrepreneur who fails in a business venture may realize that their approach lacked preparation or resilience, and these insights may pave the way for future success. What makes this chapter particularly engaging is how it blends practical application with philosophical reflection. The protagonist does not glorify suffering, but instead examines it with honesty and curiosity. They begin asking, what is this experience teaching me? How have my reactions amplified the pain? What patterns or habits contributed to this hardship? Real-life application is clear. If we can approach suffering with awareness rather than avoidance, we gain clarity, problem-solving ability, and emotional maturity. Small examples include using criticism as a tool for improvement, learning patience through repeated challenges, or turning personal failure into an opportunity to mentor or support others who struggle. You can apply these lessons in your own life by reframing your perspective on hardship. When faced with difficulties, pause and reflect. What can I learn from this situation? How can this experience strengthen my resilience or understanding of myself and others? Practically, this could mean journaling about your challenges, seeking feedback from trusted individuals, or practicing mindfulness to observe your emotional reactions without judgment. By consciously extracting lessons from suffering, you transform adversity into a structured opportunity for growth rather than a source of despair. This chapter also invites reflection. Which past hardships still carry unresolved lessons for me? Have I been resisting the insights embedded in my suffering? How might my life change if I approach pain with curiosity instead of resistance? The story demonstrates that suffering, though uncomfortable and often painful, is a necessary companion in the journey towards self-knowledge and emotional strength. By embracing the lessons hidden in hardship, the protagonist, and we as readers, can cultivate resilience, empathy, and wisdom that endure long after the moment of pain has passed. Main points. Suffering is inevitable but carries valuable lessons for personal growth. The way we respond to hardship determines whether it destroys or strengthens us. Reflection on pain provides insight into patterns, behavior, and emotional resilience. Real-life application. Learn from failures. Use criticism constructively. Cultivate patience. And support others through shared struggles. Practical steps. Journal experiences. Observe emotional reactions. Seek feedback and consciously extract lessons from. Challenges. Reflect regularly. What is my suffering teaching me? And how can I use it to grow? Approaching hardship with awareness and curiosity transforms adversity into an opportunity for growth and emotional maturity. In The Emperor of Gladness, the chapter The Desire to Change delves into a turning point in the protagonist's journey, the moment when the urge for transformation becomes undeniable. After confronting emotional collapse, facing reality, and learning lessons through suffering, the protagonist realizes that personal growth is impossible without an active, conscious desire to change. This chapter emphasizes that change does not happen passively. It begins with a decision, an internal acknowledgement that the current patterns, habits, or mindsets are no longer serving one's purpose. The narrative illustrates that this desire is the spark that turned reflection into action, stagnation into progress, and fear into motivation. This chapter resonates deeply because the longing to change is universal, though often complicated by fear, uncertainty, or habit. Consider someone stuck in a repetitive career path, feeling unfulfilled but unsure how to transition into something more meaningful. Or think of a person who repeatedly engages in toxic relationships, knowing that patterns of behavior need adjustment, yet struggling to take the first step toward healthier interactions. The protagonist's awakening mirrors these real-life dilemmas. Change begins internally, fueled by the recognition that continued inaction will perpetuate dissatisfaction. The story highlights that genuine transformation begins not with external circumstances, but with internal motivation and the readiness to face discomfort and uncertainty. What makes this chapter compelling is the practical and psychological depth it offers. The protagonist learns that the desire to change is not always easy to sustain. It requires courage, self-compassion, and persistent effort. For example, someone attempting to break a long-standing habit, such as procrastination, overthinking, or negative self-talk, must first acknowledge its impact on their life, envision the benefits of a different approach, and commit to incremental steps. Real-life application is clear. The internal desire acts as a compass, guiding daily actions, choices, and strategies toward a more aligned and intentional life. You can apply these lessons in your own life by cultivating awareness of where change is needed and actively nurturing the desire to act. Begin by asking yourself, which areas of my life feel stagnant or unfulfilling? Which patterns am I repeating that no longer serve me? Next, visualize the benefits of change and identify small, practical steps to initiate it. For instance, if you want to improve physical health, begin with a 10-minute daily exercise or a single dietary adjustment. If your goal is emotional growth, start by journaling feelings or practicing mindful communication. The key is to translate the desire to change into consistent, tangible actions that build momentum over time. This chapter also encourages reflection. What is holding me back from initiating the change I know I need? Am I avoiding discomfort, fear of failure, or uncertainty about outcomes? How would my life look if I allowed myself to fully commit to growth and transformation? The story demonstrates that desire alone is not enough. It must be paired with courage, discipline, and actionable steps. Yet, once the spark of genuine desire is ignited, it creates a powerful internal drive capable of reshaping habits, mindset, and ultimately, life itself. Main points. Genuine change begins with a conscious desire to transform. Internal motivation, not external circumstances, drives lasting growth. Fear, habit, and uncertainty often delay change but can be overcome. Real-life application. Identify stagnant patterns. Visualize benefits of change. Take small actionable steps. Practical strategies. Start small. Commit consistently. Journal reflections and track progress. Reflect regularly. Where do I need to change and what is preventing me from taking action? Desire paired with courage and action creates momentum toward personal growth and meaningful transformation. In The Emperor of Gladness, the chapter A New Perspective marks a transformative moment in the protagonist's journey, where insight and reflection converge to shift the way they perceive themselves, others, and the world around them. After enduring emotional collapse, confronting harsh truths, and developing a strong desire for change, the protagonist begins to recognize that the lens through which they have viewed life, shaped by past experiences, fears, and assumptions, has limited their potential for growth and fulfillment. This chapter emphasizes that adopting a new perspective does not erase challenges or pain, but it changes how these experiences are interpreted, opening doors to creativity, problem-solving, and emotional resilience. The narrative underscores that perspective shapes reality. By shifting the mental framework, one can transform obstacles into opportunities and suffering into meaningful lessons. This chapter resonates because it mirrors an experience that is deeply human. The moment when a small shift in thinking leads to profound transformation. Consider someone who has long viewed professional failure as a definitive proof of incompetence, only to realize that the failure was a stepping stone for growth, learning, and skill refinement. Or imagine a person struggling with strained relationships who suddenly sees a situation through empathy and understanding rather than blame, leading to reconciliation or healthier boundaries. The protagonist's journey demonstrates that changing perspective requires intentional reflection, courage to challenge old assumptions, and the willingness to see situations in a different light. In essence, it is about moving from a reactive mindset to a reflective, proactive one, where challenges are no longer threats but catalysts for learning. What makes this chapter compelling is its practical application to everyday life. The protagonist's experience shows that perspective can be shifted in both small and significant ways. For example, in daily interactions, reframing criticism and constructive feedback rather than personal attack can reduce stress and foster growth. Similarly, viewing setbacks as learning opportunities rather than failures encourages persistence and experimentation. Hypothetically, someone facing financial strain might shift perspective from anxiety and scarcity to creative problem-solving and strategic planning, transforming pressure into productive action. The chapter teaches that mindset is not fixed. It can be adjusted deliberately to improve emotional well-being, decision-making, and overall satisfaction. You can apply the lessons from this chapter by actively practicing perspective shifts in your own life. Start by reflecting. Which situations am I viewing through a limited or negative lens? What assumptions or fears are coloring my judgment? Next, experiment with alternative interpretations. Consider how someone you respect might view the same situation, or imagine the long-term outcome instead of immediate difficulties. Journaling, meditation, and conversations with trusted peers are practical tools to explore new perspectives. Over time, these intentional shifts can lead to greater emotional flexibility, improve relationships, and enhance problem-solving abilities, allowing you to navigate challenges with clarity and composure. This chapter also invites deep self-reflection. How have my habitual perspectives limited my growth or happiness? Which old assumptions do I cling to out of comfort or fear? How might my life improve if I consciously adopted a perspective that emphasizes learning, empathy, and resilience? A new perspective shows that by choosing to see differently, we not only alter our understanding of life's challenges, but also create the foundation for purposeful action and meaningful transformation. The story illustrates that perspective is not merely a way of seeing. It is a tool for living more intentionally and authentically. Main points. Perspective shapes reality. Changing it transforms challenges into opportunities. Old assumptions and fears often limit growth and emotional resilience. Reflection and intentional shifts in thinking enable personal and professional growth. Real-life application. Reframe failures. View criticism constructively. Approach setbacks creatively. Practical steps. Journal reflections. Meditate. Seek alternative viewpoints. Experiment with new interpretations. Reflect regularly. How is my current perspective limiting me? And what new lens can I adopt? Shifting perspective is a powerful tool for emotional well-being, meaningful action, and long-term transformation. In The Emperor of Gladness, the chapter Letting Go explores one of the most profound and liberating stages in the protagonist's journey. After navigating emotional collapse, facing harsh realities, and developing a desire for change, they come to understand that personal growth cannot occur while clinging to the past, to grudges, or to outdated beliefs about themselves and the world. Letting go is presented not as an act of weakness or resignation, but as a conscious decision to release emotional baggage that weighs down the mind and spirit. The protagonist learns that freedom and peace are not given. They are earned by actively choosing to surrender what no longer serves a positive purpose in life. This chapter emphasizes that holding on to pain, fear, or resentment does not protect us. It binds us to patterns that prevent growth and fulfillment. This chapter resonates because it reflects an experience nearly everyone encounters: the struggle to release attachments, habits, or memories that cause suffering. Consider someone who cannot forgive a long-standing betrayal, allowing resentment to dictate interactions and emotional responses, leading to stress and strained relationships. Or imagine a professional who clings to a failed project or missed opportunity, letting regret hinder progress on future goals. The protagonist's journey mirrors these scenarios, illustrating that letting go is an active process, requiring introspection, courage, and persistence. It is a shift in mindset from resistance to acceptance, from clinging to trust, and from fear of loss to embracing the possibility of growth and renewal. What makes this chapter compelling is its emphasis on actionable application. The protagonist begins by recognizing specific attachments, old regrets, toxic relationships, limiting self-beliefs, and consciously releasing them. Real-life application can follow the same process. For example, journaling grievances, meditating on forgiveness, or talking through unresolved emotions with a trusted friend can create a sense of closure. Letting go may also involve practical steps: ending unhealthy habits, stepping away from unfulfilling situations, or choosing to stop ruminating on past mistakes. The story shows that letting go does not erase memories or lessons learned. It merely transforms a relationship with the past, allowing space for new experiences, growth, and emotional clarity. You can apply these lessons by asking yourself reflective questions. Which aspect of my past am I still holding on to, and why? How is this attachment affecting my present actions, decisions, and emotional state? What would my life look like if I consciously released what no longer serves me? Hypothetical scenarios can help guide this process. Imagine writing a letter to someone you need to forgive but never send, or visualizing releasing a heavy weight from your shoulders to symbolize letting go of guilt or fear. By taking these steps, you not only reduce emotional stress, but also open the door to healthier relationships, clearer thinking, and purposeful living. Main points. Letting go is an active, conscious process essential for personal growth. Holding on to past pain, fear, or resentment limits emotional and practical progress. Release attachments to outdated beliefs, toxic relationships, and unproductive habits. Role life application. Journal grievances, meditate, forgive, end harmful routines, and visualize emotional release. Practical steps. Identify what no longer serves you. Take concrete action to release it. Reflect regularly on progress. Reflect regularly. What am I clinging to, and how does it hold me back? What benefits will arise if I let go? Letting go transforms a relationship with the past, creating space for clarity, growth, and meaningful experiences. In The Emperor of Gladness, the chapter Finding Inner Strength captures a pivotal moment in the protagonist's journey where resilience, self-awareness, and determination converge to reveal the untapped power within. After enduring emotional collapse, learning lessons through suffering, embracing the desire to change, and practicing letting go, the protagonist begins to discover that true strength is not external, it arises from within. This chapter emphasizes that inner strength is cultivated through reflection, persistence, and the conscious choice to confront life's challenges rather than avoid them. It is not about perfection or invulnerability. Rather, it is about harnessing one's emotions, experiences, and insight to act with courage, clarity, and purpose in the face of uncertainty or adversity. This chapter resonates because it mirrors real-life situations where ordinary people discover extraordinary resilience in moments of difficulty. Consider someone who loses their job unexpectedly but uses the setback as a catalyst to pursue a long-held dream or skill development, eventually finding fulfillment and success. Or think of a person facing chronic illness or family struggles who, despite fear and pain, draws on inner determination to maintain stability, support loved ones, and create a meaningful routine. The protagonist's journey demonstrates that inner strength is rarely instantaneous. It emerges from consistent effort, reflection, and the willingness to confront discomfort. It is built not by avoiding difficulties, but by responding intentionally to them, learning from failures, and maintaining belief in one's own capacity to endure and grow. What makes this chapter compelling is its practical application for anyone seeking personal empowerment. The protagonist discovers strategies to access inner strength, focusing on what can be controlled, maintaining a disciplined routine, seeking support when needed, and reframing challenges as opportunity for growth. Real-life application could involve developing mental resilience through mindfulness, physical endurance through exercise, or emotional resilience by journaling and self-reflection. Hypothetical scenarios can illustrate this. A student preparing for critical exams might face stress and anxiety, but can draw inner strength through structured study, meditation, and self-affirmation. Similarly, someone navigating a difficult relationship might use reflection and clear boundaries to act with integrity and strength. You can apply these lessons in your own life by identifying areas where your inner strength is needed and consciously practicing resilience. Ask yourself reflective questions. Which challenges am I avoiding that require my courage? How have past experiences already equipped me with the tools to handle today's difficulties? What small daily practices can help me cultivate patience, focus, and determination? By actively engaging with these questions, you can strengthen your capacity to navigate adversity with composure and confidence, transforming obstacles into stepping stones of personal growth. Main points. Inner strength comes from reflection, persistence, and conscious action. True resilience is cultivated, not innate, and is built through confronting challenges. Real-life application. Focus on what you can control, maintain routines, seek support, reframe challenges positively. Practical strategies, mindfulness, journaling, self-affirmation, structured practice, and disciplined habits. Reflect regularly. Where is my courage needed, and how can I access it? How can past experiences inform present challenges? Inner strength allows one to respond intentionally to adversity, grow through challenges, and act with clarity, courage, and purpose. In The Emperor of Gladness, the chapter Small Wins Matter highlights one of the most practical yet often overlooked principles of personal growth, the power of incremental progress. After the protagonist navigates emotional collapse, confronts past pain, embraces change, and discovers inner strength, they learn that transformation does not always come from dramatic, sweeping actions. Instead, consistent small victories, tiny decisions, minor improvements, and daily disciplined habits accumulate over time to create profound change. This chapter emphasizes that success, resilience, and self-mastery are built brick by brick, and that celebrating small wins is not trivial but essential to sustaining motivation, confidence, and momentum on the journey of self-improvement. This chapter resonates deeply because it mirrors real-life experiences where small, consistent actions yield remarkable results. Consider an individual trying to improve physical health. Committing to just 10 minutes of exercise per day may seem insignificant, but over weeks and months, it builds endurance, confidence, and habit formation that ultimately leads to significant transformation. Or think of professional learning a new skill, like coding or writing. Mastering small modules each day eventually compounds into expertise and opportunities that once felt unattainable. The protagonist's journey illustrates that impatience and a desire for instant results often sabotage progress, while attention to small, achievable steps creates a sustainable path to lasting change. Even minor choices, responding calmly in a stressful situation, resisting a negative thought, or completing a simple task on time, serve as micro-wins that reinforce a sense of control and accomplishment. What makes this chapter compelling is its actionable guidance for everyday life. The protagonist applies the concept of small wins by breaking daunting challenges into manageable components and setting realistic, measurable goals. Real-life application could involve creating daily or weekly micro-goals, tracking progress, and rewarding oneself for incremental achievements. Hypothetically, a student overwhelmed by a large exam syllabus can divide study material into small sections, mastering one section at a time, which not only reduces stress but creates a sense of achievement and momentum. Similarly, in personal relationships, small gestures of kindness or consistent communication strengthen bond gradually, producing a long-term positive impact that dramatic efforts alone cannot achieve. You can apply the lessons from this chapter by focusing on identifying achievable daily actions that align with your larger goals. Reflective questions to guide this process include: what small action can I take today that brings me closer to my goal? Which minor achievements have I overlooked that deserve acknowledgement? How can I use these incremental successes to maintain motivation during challenging times? By embracing the philosophy of small wins, you not only cultivate consistency and resilience, but also build a sense of empowerment that propels you forward even when the ultimate goal seems distant. Main points: small, consistent actions accumulate into meaningful, long-term change. Celebrating incremental victory sustains motivation, confidence, and momentum. Real-life application: break challenges into manageable steps, set achievable micro-goals, track progress. Practical strategies, daily habits, incremental learning, consistent practice, small gestures of improvement. Reflect regularly. Which small actions can I take today to move forward? What minor wins have I achieved that I can acknowledge? Focus on small wins cultivates resilience, empowerment, and sustainable growth, creating lasting transformation over time. In The Emperor of Gladness, the chapter Rebuilding Life captures one of the most crucial phases in the protagonist's journey, where resilience, insight, and action converge to create a renewed sense of purpose. After enduring emotional collapse, confronting the weight of past experiences, letting go of limiting beliefs, discovering inner strength, and embracing small wins, the protagonist reaches a point where rebuilding life is not just an idea but a conscious, deliberate process. This chapter emphasizes that rebuilding is not about starting over from scratch in despair, but about integrating lessons from the past, harnessing personal growth, and constructing a life aligned with one's values and aspirations. It teaches that the foundation for a fulfilling future is laid through intentional choices, consistency, and the courage to confront both internal and external challenges. This chapter resonates deeply because it mirrors real-life situations where individuals must reconstruct their lives after setbacks. Consider someone who has experienced a major career loss. Instead of giving in to frustration or self-doubt, they begin to reassess their skills, set achievable goals, and gradually build a career that is more aligned with their passions. Or imagine a person recovering from a difficult relationship, where they choose not to dwell on past mistakes, but instead focus on self-growth, new connections, and establishing healthier boundaries. The protagonist's journey illustrates that rebuilding is a process of careful planning, patience, and persistence. Small, strategic actions, like developing daily routines, setting priorities, and seeking supportive networks, become the building blocks of a renewed life. These steps make abstract ideas about recovery tangible and actionable for readers and viewers alike. What makes this chapter compelling is its emphasis on practical, applicable strategies. Rebuilding life requires identifying what truly matters, letting go of what no longer serves, and cultivating habits and environments that support growth. For example, someone aiming to improve physical and mental health might start by implementing simple routines such as daily exercise, mindful reflection, and prioritizing nutrition. Similarly, in personal development, it could involve learning a new skill, dedicating time to hobbies, or volunteering, gradually constructing a life that aligns with personal values. Hypothetically, a person facing financial instability can rebuild by analyzing spending, creating a budget, developing a side income, and consistently tracking progress. Each deliberate action contributes to a sense of control, purpose, and accomplishment, reinforcing momentum in the rebuilding process. You can apply the lessons from this chapter by taking reflective steps to assess the areas in your life that need reconstruction. Ask yourself, which aspects of my life require rebuilding, and what lessons can I carry forward? What small, deliberate steps can I take today to create momentum toward a better future? How can I cultivate habits, relationships, and routines that align with my values and long-term goals? By focusing on strategic, consistent actions rather than instant results, you transform the overwhelming idea of rebuilding life into a series of achievable steps, allowing growth, resilience, and fulfillment to flourish over time. Main points. Rebuilding life is a deliberate, conscious process grounded in reflection, learning, and action. Integration of past lessons and personal growth form the foundation for a renewed future. Real life application. Set achievable goals. Develop consistent routines. Let go of what no longer serves. Cultivate supportive relationships. Practical strategies. Prioritize values. Take small actionable steps. Track progress. Engage in skill building or hobbies. Reflect regularly. Which parts of my life need rebuilding? What lessons from the past can guide my future? What small actions today will shape a stronger tomorrow? Rebuilding life creates resilience, purpose, and momentum, transforming challenges into opportunities for meaningful transformation. In The Emperor of Gladness, the chapter Acceptance and Peace marks a profound culmination in the protagonist's journey, where the lessons learned from emotional struggle, self-discovery, and rebuilding life converge into a state of inner calm. After navigating the turbulence of past trauma, letting go of what no longer serves, finding inner strength, celebrating small wins, and intentionally rebuilding life, the protagonist arrives at the understanding that true peace comes not from external circumstances but from acceptance, acknowledging reality as it is, embracing imperfection, and releasing the need for control over everything. This chapter emphasizes that acceptance is not passive resignation but an active engagement with life's challenges, fostering clarity, resilience, and a deeper sense of contentment. The protagonist learns that inner peace emerges when one stops fighting the inevitable and begins to work with what is, creating harmony between the self and the world. This chapter resonates deeply because it mirrors a universal human struggle, the tension between resistance and acceptance. Consider someone who faces chronic illness or financial setbacks and initially responds with frustration and denial. Over time, as they practice acceptance, acknowledging their situation without judgment, they can redirect energy toward constructive actions, self-care, and meaningful goals rather than being paralyzed by fear or resentment. Or imagine a person navigating strained relationships. By accepting that they cannot control others' behavior, they focus on managing their own responses, setting healthy boundaries, and cultivating empathy. The protagonist's journey illustrates that peace is not found in avoiding challenges, but in embracing them with awareness, patience, and a willingness to learn from every experience. It transforms suffering into insight and struggle into growth. What makes this chapter practical and applicable is its emphasis on tangible steps toward acceptance. The protagonist models how reflection, mindfulness, and intentional action cultivate lasting peace. Real-life application might involve daily practices such as journaling about what is outside one's control, meditating to observe thoughts without judgment, or reframing challenges as lessons rather than burdens. Hypothetically, someone facing workplace stress could choose to accept the limitations of their environment while proactively improving skills, nurturing relationships, or finding creative solutions, rather than expending energy on resistance or frustration. Over time, these practices strengthen emotional resilience, reduce anxiety, and create a sustainable sense of inner calm, even in the midst of life's uncertainties. You can apply these lessons by reflecting on areas of your life where resistance creates unnecessary stress and consciously practicing acceptance. Ask yourself, which situations am I resisting that I cannot control? How would my perspective shift if I acknowledge reality without judgment? What small daily practices can help me cultivate patience, clarity, and emotional balance? By engaging in this reflective process and applying actionable steps, you transform acceptance from a theoretical concept into a lived experience, allowing peace, resilience, and fulfillment to grow from within. Main points. Acceptance is an active engagement with reality, not passive resignation. Inner peace arises when we acknowledge circumstances and release the need for control. Real life application. Practice mindfulness, journal reflections, reframe challenges, focus on controllable actions, practical strategies, meditation, self-reflection, boundary setting, constructive action in difficult situations, reflect regularly. Where am I resisting what I cannot change? How can I respond with acceptance and clarity? Acceptance transforms struggle into insight, reduces emotional stress, and fosters lasting inner peace. In The Emperor of Gladness, the chapter The Meaning of Gladness serves as a climactic revelation of the protagonist's journey, where all prior struggles, lessons, and personal growth coalesce into a profound understanding of true happiness. After enduring emotional collapse, confronting past traumas, letting go of limiting attachments, cultivating inner strength, celebrating small wins, rebuilding life, and embracing acceptance, the protagonist realizes that gladness is not found in external achievements, material possessions, or fleeting pleasures. Instead, it emerges from a deep alignment with one's values, the cultivation of meaningful relationships, purposeful action, and a conscious appreciation of life's simple moments. This chapter underscores that gladness is a state of being rather than a destination, cultivated through self-awareness, intentional living, and the integration of all life's experiences, both joyful and painful. The chapter resonates because it translates an abstract philosophical idea into practical, everyday living. Consider someone who has spent years chasing societal definitions of success, money, status, or recognition, only to feel empty despite outward accomplishments. Through reflection, they might discover that true gladness arises from moments of connection, gratitude, creativity, and contribution to others. Or imagine a person who has faced personal loss or hardship. They find that by engaging fully with the present moment, cherishing small joys, and practicing gratitude, a sense of gladness begins to flourish even amidst difficulty. The protagonist's journey demonstrates that gladness is cultivated incrementally through conscious choices, reflection, and the ability to find meaning in both ordinary and extraordinary experiences. What makes this chapter actionable is its guidance on how to integrate gladness into daily life. The protagonist models practices such as mindful appreciation of the present, nurturing authentic connections, pursuing meaningful goals, and reflecting on personal growth. Real-life application can include setting aside daily moments to acknowledge accomplishments and joys, practicing gratitude for people and experiences, or dedicating time to acts of kindness and contribution. Hypothetical scenarios reinforce this. A busy professional may discover gladness by intentionally slowing down to connect with family, enjoy a hobby, or celebrate small achievements, while a student may cultivate gladness by recognizing learning milestones rather than obsessing over perfection. The key takeaway is that gladness is not a byproduct of circumstance, but a cultivated state of mind shaped by intention, reflection, and mindful living. You can apply these lessons by asking reflective questions and taking intentional actions. What aspect of my life bring authentic joy and fulfillment? How can I create daily practices that cultivate gratitude, presence, and meaningful connection? Where am I relying on external validation rather than internal alignment for my happiness? By engaging with these questions and consciously choosing actions that reinforce your values and purpose, you can experience a deeper, more sustainable sense of gladness that persists even in challenging circumstances. Main points. True gladness comes from alignment with values, meaningful relationships, purposeful action, and mindful appreciation. Gladness is cultivated, not found, through intentional living and reflection on life's experiences. Real life application. Practice gratitude, engage with the present moment, nurture relationships, celebrate small wins, practical strategies, mindfulness exercises, journaling about joy, act of kindness, focusing on meaningful goals rather than external validation, reflect regularly. What truly brings me joy? Where am I seeking happiness externally rather than internally? How can I incorporate small, consistent practices that cultivate gladness? Integrating these principles transforms life into a conscious journey of fulfillment, resilience, and authentic happiness. In The Emperor of Gladness, the chapter A New Beginning marks the culmination of the protagonist's transformative journey, symbolizing the emergence of hope, purpose, and intentional living. After navigating emotional collapse, confronting inner struggles, embracing change, cultivating inner strength, celebrating small wins, rebuilding life, accepting reality, and discovering the meaning of gladness, the protagonist reaches a point where the past no longer dictates the future. This chapter emphasizes that every ending, no matter how painful or challenging, carries within it the seed of a new beginning. It highlights the importance of reflection, deliberate action, and a willingness to step into the unknown, reminding readers that transformation is a continuous process and that each day offers the opportunity to start anew with clarity, resilience, and purpose. The chapter resonates deeply because it mirrors real-life experiences where individuals must navigate transitions and reinvent themselves. Imagine someone leaving a long-term job or career path that no longer aligns with their passions. The initial uncertainty may feel overwhelming, but by focusing on skills gained, lessons learned, and personal values, they can take the first steps toward a more fulfilling career. Or consider a person who has gone through a difficult breakup or personal loss. While the past may bring pain, choosing to embrace new experiences, set intentions for personal growth, and cultivate meaningful relationships allows them to rebuild life with renewed hope. The protagonist's journey demonstrates that beginnings are not defined by grand gestures but by small, intentional steps that accumulate into meaningful change. Even daily choices, starting a new habit, pursuing a neglected passion, or simply adopting a fresh perspective, become powerful catalysts for transformation. What makes this chapter actionable is its practical guidance on how to embrace new beginnings in life. The protagonist models strategies such as setting clear intentions, creating a roadmap for personal growth, maintaining resilience through challenges, and reflecting regularly on progress. Real-life application could involve designing a morning routine that sets the tone for productive and mindful days, dedicating time to skill development or hobbies, or consciously seeking relationships and environments that support personal growth. Hypothetically, a student transitioning to a new school or university can embrace a new beginning by focusing on forming meaningful connections, exploring interests, and setting small, achievable goals for adaptation and growth. Each intentional step reinforces a mindset that every ending is also an opportunity, transforming fear of the unknown into excitement for possibilities. You can apply the lessons from this chapter by reflecting on areas of your life ready for a fresh start, and taking deliberate steps to cultivate growth. Ask yourself, which aspect of my life are ready for renewal? What small, intentional actions can I take today to move toward a more fulfilling future? How can I embrace uncertainty as an opportunity rather than a source of fear? By consciously applying these principles, you create a framework for ongoing transformation, resilience, and personal fulfillment, allowing each new beginning to become a stepping stone toward a life of purpose and gladness. Main points. Every ending carries the seed of a new beginning. Transformation is continuous. Embrace change with reflection, intentional action, and willingness to step into the unknown. Real-life application. Set clear intentions, develop new habits, pursue neglected passions, nurture supportive relationships, practical strategies, roadmap for growth, daily routines, skill development, mindfulness practices. Reflect regularly. Which areas of life need renewal? What small actions can I take to embrace a fresh start? How can I transform fear of change into excitement for possibilities? Intentional steps toward new beginnings create resilience, personal growth, and a meaningful, purpose-driven life. And that wraps up The Emperor of Gladness. Remember the journey we explored, the power of small wins, the importance of acceptance, the strength to rebuild your life, and the ability to embrace new beginnings. By applying these lessons, you can cultivate inner peace, resilience, and lasting gladness in your own life. If you found this summary valuable, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Visual Books for more transformative book summaries, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an insight that can change your life.